going to call this meeting to order at 5:30 on August the 1st. We will not be having a prayer and a pledge this evening, so right now we will go immediately into public comment. I will ask that anybody who has their cell phone on, please turn silent it, if you would. Silent it. It's hard to say silent it, but please do that. Yes, it's this. The chemicals in the air. Mm-hmm. Issues or items that are not on the agenda may be raised by the public at this time. Citizens should speak from the podium, and today citizens will be speaking from the microphone to my right. Begin by stating their name and limit remarks to less than 3 minutes. Council members may request that a discussed item be placed on a future agenda. The council takes public comment on all regular agenda items during discussion of those items. Do we have anyone coming forward for public comment? Please.
Mayor, council members, my name is Gary Colton. I'm with the U.S. Small Business Administration, Office of Disaster Assistance, and I wanted to just take a minute to talk about the disaster assistance that we have here in San Angelo. We opened a center over in the election building that will be open through August 17th. It's open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., Monday through Friday, and it's there to provide loans for people who had damage because of the storm in June, the 23rd to the 26th. We offer loans to businesses up to $2 million to rebuild and repair and replace damaged equipment and lost inventory. Also for businesses that may have had loss, economic loss, without physical damage, we offer what's called an economic injury disaster loan, which is part of that $2 million, and that's to help them pay their bills and any other fixed debt that they might have to service until things get back to normal. They just have to be able to show that revenues have been reduced since the date of that storm. For homeowners, we offer up to $200,000 to repair or replace their home, and for homeowners and renters up to $40,000 to replace damaged personal property, which is clothing, furniture, appliances, and even a personal automobile if not fully covered by insurance. I left some flyers over on the counter that give the location of our center, the dates of operation, and also a brief overview of the program that we offer, as well as some ways to apply for the loans. The center will close on the 17th of August, but the loan application period is actually open until the 26th of September for physical damage, and people can apply online or call the 800 number on that flyer. If there are other questions, they can go over to the center there and get help from somebody that's there through the 17th.
Thank you, Gary. How do we make sure that businesses are aware of this opportunity for service? Anthony, is there anything we need to do to better communicate the message and get it out there?
Anthony and I have been working together. He has distributed our paperwork and information to all of the media in the city, and he's talking about trying to stream an interview if we can get it filmed before I leave, so that information will be more widely available. Also, I have done personally two television interviews that ran yesterday, and KIDY has it on their website because I read it this morning. And some of the Standard Times has also run an article, I know, a couple of times. So the information, we're trying to get it out. And our people at the center have been reasonably busy with numbers of people coming in applying.
Okay. Thank you, Gary.
Mm-hmm.
And Mayor, just for our viewing audience, I just want to let people know they can access all the information that Gary's been talking about on our website at cosatx.us/emergency. So all these documents have been posted on the emergency management page.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further public comment?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Lance Overstreet Engineering Services here at the city. And it was recommended that I get up and just announce that we are having a Bell Street public meeting for the Bell Street project going on next Tuesday evening. That venue is going to be here in the mezzanine. That's a change from what we had originally intended, which was council chambers. And so next Tuesday, right here in the mezzanine, and I believe that time is at 5:30 for the Bell Street public meeting. So.
Any further public comment? All right, we will move into our consent agenda. Do I have anyone who wants to pull anything from the consent agenda?
Just one item, Mayor. Item E, I am just merely curious about process on item E.
And I would like to pull item H. Do I need to do these before we do the consent agenda? Okay. At this point, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as written?
With the exceptions of item E.
With the exception of E and the H item.
Move to approve.
A second? All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 7-0. Tommy, you want to talk about item E?
Yeah, I'm just curious, just at the process that we go through for something like that. It seemed to me there might have been some dates that were real close to one another, so I'm, again, just curious about process.
We have, of course, we have Steve Miles here with the E. You can sit right there, Steve, to answer any questions. So he'll.
Okay, I apologize. I didn't hear the question
Just
clearly, please.
process that you go through to get something like that approved, the grant application. Again, I'm not looking for a long,
Right.
just a quick process.
H2O Partners has done the hazard mitigation grant for this area for the last three sessions of the grant. We let out a bid for having the hazard mitigation plan written. I asked for quotes. The only one that responded was H2O Partners. And included in their bid was the application for the FEMA grant to reimburse us for the funding for writing the hazard mitigation plan.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I'd move approval of item E.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Passes 7-0. Item H, Roland, I think I saw you here.
I'm here.
Good. Okay, good. I'd just like you to tell us a little bit about the company, a little more about what the dollars will be used for, but it's an exciting item, I think, so I'd just like to hear more detail.
Sure. For the benefit of the audience, my name is Roland Pena. I'm the Director of Economic Development here for the City of San Angelo. This agreement comes forth from our Business Retention and Expansion Program that we kickstarted a couple of years ago and have been very successful with it. This agreement has to do with Netco Energy Products. It is a wholesale oilfield supply company with locations and personnel throughout West Texas, providing oilfield materials and equipment. They do intend to purchase the Terrell manufacturing property located at 2816 Martin Luther King Drive, and they do plan to demolish an existing building and construct a 14,000 square foot building, The capital investment will be in the neighborhood of $800 to $1.2 million. They plan to relocate and create 9 to 20 positions, all personnel and operations here in San Angelo. This is a company that has personnel outside of San Angelo and really could be elsewhere, perhaps in the Permian Basin in Odessa primarily. But this is a investor and company who likes San Angelo, would prefer to expand in San Angelo and invest in San Angelo and create those jobs. The representative that responded in the background is Shannon Kendall. He is the president of the company. Let me continue. Once the company is said and done, this will provide a $6.6 million annual economic output, resulting in a gross area product of $5.1 million annually. The incentives will be used as a capital investment grant of $50,000. Job creation, we are incentivizing $5,000 per job. That's up to 20 jobs. That will be $100,000. We will provide a development fee rebate for $5,000 and a tax rebate that declines beginning at 50%, 25%, 10%, and then 10%. So it's a 4-year tax rebate decline. Total incentives is $189,000, almost $190,000. Just to remind the council and the members of the public, it is a performance agreement. So the company must perform to receive the incentives. In our negotiations, the purchase of the property is another performance requirement. So we're excited about the facility. We're excited about the operation. We're excited for what it means in terms of an economic impact for the community and, more importantly, for the tax rolls. You might have noted it does include $140,000 in business personal property and maintaining $1.7 to $3.4 million in inventory. That's a significant amount. The location on Martin Luther King is a good location, a location that needs community reinvestment. So excited about what's going to be happening in that area. And the representative of the company is here if you have any other questions that you may have in mind.
I'd like him to just stand up and introduce himself to everyone, please.
Yeah, I'm Shannon Kendall, President, Operations Manager at NETCO, and we're excited about this. Hope we can get this done. I think it'll be good for myself and the community. Thank you.
What was that address on MLK?
It's 2816 Martin Luther King Drive. It's the former Terrell Manufacturing facility. There are 2 buildings there.
Any other questions for Roland? Do I have a move to approve?
So moved.
A second? All in favor?
Aye.
7-0.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
We now have a second reading of the ordinances. Brian, do I need to read these?
Yes, you will need to read
Yeah.
the regular ones into record.
Are we on regular?
No, it's second reading of ordinance.
Go back to,
That's all part of this.
no, they already approved that.
Consent, so this is all part of it.
Yes, ma'am.
So it's all done. So we've got it.
Just the regular,
Okay.
starting with 5A.
All right, so we are now going to move into the regular agenda. A, consider public hearing a resolution approving the 2017 Annual Action Plan for use of CDBG and home grant funds and authorizing city manager to execute the applications, required certifications, related documents, and annual funding agreement for the allocation of $688,898 of a CDBG and $249,197 home grant funds and $56,000 in program income. Bob Salas.
Good afternoon. The annual action plan is our petition for the 2017 federal grant funds, CDBG and home. It is due to HUD on August the 14th. The plan certifies that the city is adhering to federal regulations such as fair housing, anti-discrimination, drug-free environment, those kind of things. It also addresses some key interest items such as homelessness, barriers to affordable housing. But most importantly, it documents the projects that will be funding this year and which we discussed last month. Here are the CDBG projects we discussed. They include debt service for Producers Park. We are going to pay $38,000 for a code compliance officer. a new program called Homeless Prevention. We're going to offer $90,000 for that, and then we're going to increase the emergency repair to $177,850. We did discuss the homeless prevention program in detail, and I'd like to kind of give a quick recap. The program is designed to help families recover from a life crisis with rent and mortgage assistance. It's for those families that fall within the 50% of area median income, which in San Angelo is $61,400. We will provide up to 3 months of assistance at 175% of rent mortgage, which means that if you pay $1,000 a month for a mortgage, the max we'll pay for 3 months is $1,750. We'll divvy that up money. We'll pay according to the needs. If you pay $1,000 for that first month's rent, you have $750 for 3 months. We kind of work with the case manager to figure out what the best options are for you. And you won't be eligible for more than 3 years. After 3 years, you'll be eligible again. It does require the family to be able to sustain themselves after the crisis. We have a very stringent risk management assessment form that we'll use to select some good candidates. And it is pretty stringent. So not everybody is going to be eligible for this program. Any questions on the homeless prevention program?
Could you go back to that first screen? And the code compliance, we're hiring an additional person to monitor?
No, this is basically what we do is we take one of our code officers and we pay his salary to stay in our targeted neighborhoods. Instead of going outside of that, his focus is strictly those 4 target areas to ensure that we're trying to help maintain cleanliness and that kind of thing. Part of our neighborhood revitalization program.
Any questions for Bob?
And then our home funds, again, these include first-time home buyers assistance. It includes tenant-based rental assistance for MHMR, which is our special needs clients. And then we have for new housing construction with Galley CDC. Did fail to mention that we're going to use $62,000 of prior year funds, which wasn't clear last month. We're asking council to approve the plan, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Was presented.
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. I should have asked for public comment. Yeah. Do we have any public comment?
Steve Hampton. Bob, I had a question. You said the area income was what, 50% of the area medium income? What was that number?
It's 61,400.
Is the
61,400. It's the area medium income for San Angelo, and it's 50% of that, based on family size.
6,100?
61,000. Sorry. 61,400.
400. Thank you.
Now, do I need to take another vote now? Since I did
No,
all that?
no, we already have covered.
Second item on the regular agenda, an appeal of a denial by the Planning Commission of a conditional use to allow for an animal kennel and dog boarding facility in the general commercial, heavy commercial, CG/CH zoning district on a .70 acre property located at 3930 Sunset Drive.
Thank you. John James, Director of Planning and Development Services. We're passing out a handout that's going to include additional comment forms we've received from the public since the information that we sent out earlier. So it's got an updated map and updated forms either in favor or in opposition to this project. The proposal is for a conditional use for an animal kennel and dog boarding facility. A conditional use is one of those uses that our zoning ordinance considers should be determined on a case-by-case basis. So whereas most uses under zoning are either allowed or not allowed in a particular zoning district, a conditional use is just like it sounds, it's conditional. The council can, normally the planning commission can determine whether or not the particular use is appropriate for a particular location. Those do stop at the planning commission unless appealed to the city council. So the planning commission does make the final decision on those. Again, unless those are appealed. In this case, the planning commission did deny the application for the conditional use, and the applicant has appealed that to the council for a final decision. You can see the location here on the map. It's on Sunset, just near Southwest, just basically across the street from the mall. You can see the future land use and zoning maps. The designation of this area on our future land use plan is neighborhood, and the current zoning is general commercial, heavy commercial. And I think that's where some of the issues arise in this particular case. You can see the commercial zoning, and then of course as you go towards the mall, everything to the west of this area is commercial, but they are basically right on the line where you transition from the commercial area to the residential area. And so this property is literally on the boundary of commercial to residential transition. This is the property. You can see it's currently vacant, and this is the building that would be proposed for the dog boarding facility. This is just looking back towards the mall at the commercial area, and then the other direction on Sunset with the homes that are across the alley. This is looking at the rear of the building. This area behind the building is where they would propose an outdoor dog run, outdoor dog exercise area. And the plan is that that area would end basically with a fence extending at the edge of the building itself. And so if you look at the picture on the right, that's looking the other direction. So that fence would be roughly in this location. And so the distance from that dog outdoor area is basically from here across the parking lot to the alley, and then across the alley before you get to those homes on the other side of the alley.
Just a real quick question. How far is it from the corner of the building to those condos?
Well, actually,
Townhouses.
let me go to the next slide because we've measured that, and from the edge of the building.
Okay, easy there, Carnett.
Certainly answers my question.
Now, this does not measure property line to property line, which of course is just across the alley, but if you measure from the edge of that building to the edge of the homes, that distance is 95 feet.
That's a long ways for fleas and ticks to jump.
And so here are some of the reasons that staff recommended approval of this case. We believe that it does limit the use with some of the conditions that I'll mention in just a minute. The proposed use, the dogs would generally be inside, and one of the handouts, or the first page of the handout that I gave you, lists the proposed daily schedule for the business that would indicate what times dogs would be allowed outside, what times they would be fed, and those sorts of things. I think that addresses some of the concerns, although not all the concerns of the neighbors. One thing that's number 5 here, it would eliminate the potential use for more intensive uses. As I mentioned, this is zoned general commercial, heavy commercial, and so there are uses in that zoning category that could be more problematic if you were living next door to them. Some of those would include equipment storage, vehicle repair, auto repair type uses, car wash, industrial service, machinery, equipment type of service, food and beverage processing, dance clubs, other things like that that could create noise. And also, I should mention, in the CGCH zoning district, there are no hours of operation limitations. So a 24-hour business could also go in at this location, as well as, I think I mentioned, no limits on outdoor storage in this particular zoning classification. So Just wanted to point that out as you're comparing what could happen on this site. If this use doesn't go in there, some of the things that could go without any formal approval being necessary could at least potentially be worse. We did send out our notices to the surrounding properties. 20 notices in total were mailed out. This, you can see, is a little bit out of date. The one that I handed you has an updated map, and you can see a few more properties along this stretch. I think 8 total properties along this first stretch have now submitted notice or a response to our notice that they were in opposition, as well as 2 additional across the street. This one that's shown here, and then this one as well. We did receive one, as you can see here, in favor, neighboring business property that did respond in favor to the request.
I'm sorry, John. Question, the neighboring business, is that Trend Furniture?
You know, I'm not sure.
Okay, I think that's Trend Furniture.
It is.
One of those in opposition said that the city's decision so far has been to have pet boarding facilities outside of the city limits. Is that correct?
I'm not aware. There are, I'm being told there are dog boarding and similar facilities that are inside the city limits. Although these types of uses often locate outside the city just because of the space needs and outdoor runs and that sort of thing. Well, and in fact, a number of the veterinary clinics in town also provide boarding services as well. So I don't think it's fair to say that they're all located outside the city.
Mayor, one of them is over by the McDonald's off of Southwest, and I actually went over there since this is in my district and walked around that building to see, you know, what it might be. I have used it before, but I didn't notice any problems. But today I went back and walked around it to see if there was an unusual amount of noise or odors, as some of the, you know, letters of opposition have stated. And I also went to the property, and I walked the property a couple of times just to see what conditions there may be. And John, I don't know if you're through with your presentation or if we're jumping in ahead of you, but if you could go back to the slides that show the pictures of the property in the alley.
That one or that one?
No, go back one. That one. That
Sorry.
one. When I was out there, a couple of the sections of fence were down. So I'm wondering if there was any discussion about, you know, making sure that fence was absolutely stable and that it wasn't falling down so that there would be an issue. And then I wondered what was going to happen if they're going to fence from the end of the property there back to the fence going, I guess that would be north maybe. What's going to happen to the rest of that concrete slab from there to the fence on the alley?
That's the only requirement. Well, now, is the fence that you were talking about falling down the one that's on the
alley.
Residential side?
Yes, on
across
the
alley?
residential side, yes.
If it's that fence that's
Right
actually
there, that's the one.
the
There are
fence,
2 sections that were down when I was out there.
right. The fence on the neighborhood side of the alley, that's the responsibility of those homeowners or renters or the property owner. So if that fence was damaged, then they would have to repair or maintain that fence. Although, as I mentioned, this property, and let me actually go back to the conditions. One of the conditions that's recommended is that the applicant would install a 6-foot privacy fence between where the dog run would be, and basically the other side. So it doesn't necessarily have to have a fence on the property line, but they would have to fence in the dog area, and it couldn't be chain link. It has to be a opaque wood fence.
Okay. and maybe I wasn't clear, but the fence that, where the sections are down, border the property that we're talking about. Not that one.
Okay, yeah,
You
you can see here, yeah, you're right, this
So
fence.
that one, that's that property that we're talking about, that fence belongs to them. So is that where the 6-foot fence is gonna go?
No,
Are the-
the 6-foot fence would be off from the end of this in the dog run area.
Okay.
So they would have to maintain that fence because we have a requirement that where commercial businesses abut residential, there has to be a screening fence.
Okay, okay.
And so the business would be responsible for maintaining this fence as well.
Okay.
We talked earlier about certainly there are vet clinics who board dogs, but do any of them butt right up next to a residential area? Because the ones I'm thinking of in terms of veterinarian services are pretty much in commercial areas with residential not in the backyard. But I don't know all the vets, so I don't want to make that as a, because I don't know, but I'm asking that question.
And that's something that we have not looked at. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any veterinary clinics that are next to residential, but I would actually be surprised if there are not a few.
Maybe Dr. Henderson's right there behind the old Albertsons. Oh, I think that one may. Just thinking off the top of my head, that one may.
And Main Street, yeah, so I'm being told we know of at least two that are in that situation, one on Main Street as well.
Okay. And do we know how many dogs we're talking about?
I think the applicant perhaps can answer that. Let me go back to the conditions, though. Unless you add additional conditions, which you have the ability to do through this process, these are the conditions that staff has recommended. So I would just caution you that, let's say, for example, the applicant says they'll have a limit of 20 dogs. There's no legal reason that they couldn't have more than that unless you place additional conditions or restrictions on your approval. And I won't read through all of these. They're in your report, but this is the entirety of the conditions that staff has recommended. I'll note that first one is it's not necessarily an hours of operation limitation, but it's the hours that animals would not be allowed outside during those hours, which correspond to the city's noise ordinance hours. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. Again, just a reminder, staff does recommend approval, but this does come to you as an appeal because the Planning Commission did deny it, and that was a 4-2 vote by the Planning Commission to deny. This does not require a supermajority, unlike normal zoning cases. I could be corrected, but my understanding
You're about to be corrected.
My understanding is that a rezoning or a text amendment to the zoning ordinance does require a supermajority, but a conditional use is under a different procedural section that does not have that requirement.
That is not the research that we did. The research that we did showed that it does require a supermajority.
Okay, I stand corrected.
So, John, as I understand it, that this area is zoned commercial, right? So
That's
it's
correct.
general or heavy commercial zoning that backs up and is kind of in a transitional spot to a residential neighborhood. Right. I noted 4 objections or oppositions, 4 points of opposition to this in the letters that were given. One was noise, one was odor, one was traffic, and one was the pest, I guess, fleas and ticks, a concern that they may get into the residents across the alley. Well, the last 2, and I don't mean to be insensitive to that, but I don't think there would be an issue with traffic because there is no access to the subject property from that neighborhood. I drove Driftwood, which is the street that sort of circles around the properties the residential properties, and there is no access to the building from there, so I don't see that increased traffic would necessarily be an issue. Given that this is a boarding and grooming facility, I wouldn't think that fleas and ticks would be an issue either, so that leaves the odor and the noise. When I was over there walking the property and looking, I think there was more traffic noise because Sunset and Southwest intersect right there, and the mall is right across the street, and Red Lobster and other things. So, you know, the traffic noise to me was pretty substantial. I don't know that barking would, you know, if a dog is barking intermittently, not constant barking certainly. And like I said, I visited another kennel to see, you know, about the odor, if I could smell something. And another thing that I thought about, you know, we used to have Concho Valley Paws in the mall. And I don't ever remember walking into the mall and getting, you know, a real bad odor. And they kept dogs there 24/7, I believe, dogs and cats. So as I've looked this over and over, and like I said, I don't want to make it seem inconsequential that there's opposition to this, but looking at the properties, looking at what the zoning is, and really considering where we are, Mayor, I'm going to make a motion that we reject the Planning Commission's denial and approve conditional use subject to the 4 conditions that were listed by the Planning Department.
Did anyone else have a question concerning?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any public comment?
Hello, my name is Linda Cabot, and I live at 3902 Driftwood Court. So I am one of the properties. I guess I have concerns because of well, there's several, but it's a peace and quiet. And dogs, that is a hollow area with an AEP, and the barking noise, like they can bark up to 10:30 at night and can start again at 7 in the morning. Really? I mean, we have people that that work, that sleep during the day and work at night. I mean, I think this is very inconsiderate. Also, the concern that something really worse could be there, that sounds like a scare tactic. I'm sorry, but I find that offensive. We could deal with whatever that is. I guess there's things that could be worse there, but there's such a limited area. It is an old, dilapidated building. I really don't think that those things could be an issue. We've gone through beauty restaurants, gambling, beauty parlors, and those things we've lived with. And you wonder about, you know, I really am not that concerned about fleas and ticks, but I can tell you what's going to make the dogs bark, and that's the possums, the raccoons, the rats, the mice, and the snake that live in the AEP right-of-way area right behind it, that crawl out into our yards every night and are a nuisance to us and cause our own dogs to bark. And I think those barking dogs are going to cause other dogs to start barking. And I think that it's almost constitutional that I should have the quiet enjoyment to my property. I also think that when that happens, it's going to affect my property value. Barking dogs is a particular irritant to most everyone. I had a little dachshund for 14 years. I couldn't leave her outside because she barked all the time. And I considered that to be rude and inconsiderate because it just resonated down the neighborhood. And we have other people have barking dogs, but they keep them on the inside out of consideration to the neighborhood. And then my third thing is okay, so we have a very busy code and compliance department. Since this is an exception to the rule, who is going to oversee the compliance of this situation? So we start having barking dog issues and people calling in because they're trying to sleep during the day and the dogs are barking, which they can bark from 7 to 10:30 at night. And then so that's code and compliance, and they're already very busy. And then we have like less than 15 policemen on the ground. We're supposed to be calling them over barking dogs. This is going to be an issue. That's a whole string of rentals all down the back of that. And you're going to have problems with the noise of the barking dogs. And I guess those are my main concerns. Thank you.
Do I have further public comment?
My name is Angela Cassavant, and I'm the practice representative at Angelo Back in Rehab, which is located next door at 3950 Sunset Drive. We are actually opposed to this. Our concern is the possibility of the noise nuisance for our patients at our clinic. Also, the possibility of canine fecal waste matter on our lawn right there. We do own about 3/4 of that lawn area between the two businesses. So we don't want our patients getting out of their vehicles and seeing that all the time. We do ask, if this does go through, that there be a requirement for the said business to erect a fence, a quality fence with metal poles at their expense, so that when our patients get out of their vehicles, they don't have to look at all that or hear all that noise. Thank you.
Thank you.
I am Liz Kidd. I'm the owner of Bark Boutique and Grooming Salon. Her concern about between their businesses, we are putting up a fence, a 6-foot fence, same as the other side. There will be a fence because we're going to have all that enclosed so we can have that run area. The concerns about the barking, I give you a schedule. Most of the time, depending on weather, the dogs, they're going to be either one dog up to 15 dogs. No, not even that. 6 dogs at a time, because it's going to be one person out there monitoring those dogs. And they can only have 6 dogs per one person. So if we have more than that, it'll be 2 people out there. So 12 dogs you're looking at. So it's going to depend on how long they're out there, whether they go potty in the first few minutes, whether they want to play in the water pool that I plan on putting out there, whether they want to play ball with the monitor person that's out there with them. And most of the time, it's hot, so we're not going to be out there that long. When the dogs start panting, we're going to go inside because it's too hot for them. If it's cold, well, we're not going to be outside that long either, because dogs aren't going to want to be out there, shivering, unless they're huskies, which we do have a few of those. They probably would like to stay out longer. But these dogs will be monitored while they're out there, and like I said, it's going to be limited dogs out there at a time, because we're going to have some dogs that cannot be around other dogs. So they will be walked by one person out there. They will be monitored by one person, played with, whatever the customer wants us to do. During the night, I plan on having some soft, soothing music play during the night, and there won't be anybody there during the night either to make the dogs, get excited and bark. So hopefully, I'm hoping that, during the night, it won't be as noisy. In our business hours, to the public, it's going to be from 7:30 to 5:30. That's when the public can drop off their dogs, pick up their dogs, when we're going to be inside, outside. The land between Trent and the residences, there's nothing I can do about that. Only thing I can take care of is my area that I'll be renting, and I'm going to be liable for the whole maintenance of the parking lot, the fencing, the maintenance of the landscaping. All that will be under me. And since this is my business, my reputation, I'm going to take care of it. I would be hiring more employees for the San Angelo. I would like to have some local college kids there working with me. And while we are there with the dogs, we do provide a little bit of dog training, like to prevent the barking, to have them, walk on a leash, not to be jumping. So we do provide a little bit of training, not a whole lot. We would probably get into that later. I think it's a good idea to have somebody into this business, into this building, instead of having a vacant building there. It's a perfect building for us. Perfect. It fits all my needs.
Tell me again how many dogs that you can house at one given time?
I have not really actually gone in there and measured out the space, but I would probably say 20, because we are going to have like 4 big kennels for the big dogs, like the Mastiffs, the Great Danes. They got to have a lot of room. So that cuts me down on the other areas that I can have kennels or doors in there. So probably about 20 dogs.
Okay, so I'm a little confused about the 12 dogs you were talking about earlier.
Okay, that's when they go out to play or potty. I have one person that's going to be taking that dog out. So you can only have 5 to 6 dogs per one person. If I have 2 people go out there, then it would be 12 dogs at that time. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And we also have doggy daycare, which we have an area, we would have an area set out for those dogs, and the kennel dogs would be on the far side of the building, towards Story, their chiropractor. So even though I would have up to 20 dogs boarding, it wouldn't be 20 dogs at all one time, most of the time. And like I said, anytime the dogs go out, it would be up to 5 to 12 dogs at a time, because you have to have so many dogs per person. So it depends on how many dogs I have and how many people I have working as to how many dogs will be out there at one given time. That's why I put it down for 2 hours. So one set can go, next set can go, next set can go. Does that make sense?
It sounds more organized than I know dogs are, but with that said, the question mark is certainly at 10:30 at night, if that's the ruling, you go out at 10 o'clock at night and there are going to be possums and raccoons and the other varmints that we talked about. So I can understand someone's concern about 6 dogs barking at the same time because a raccoon just ran through the alley.
Right. That's why I said I want to play soothing music. So hopefully, they won't hear the outside as much as they will the inside, the music going inside. But you shouldn't be able to hear it outside.
No, I'm talking about outside if you went to walk 6 dogs at 10 o'clock at night.
No. We only walk the dogs during business hours.
Okay.
On the schedule I gave you, that's approximately the time that we will take them out in the morning and take them out in the afternoon. And then we close at 6 p.m. So no dogs will be out after 6. And no dogs will be out before 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning. So it's only during business hours that the dogs would be outside.
So, Ms. Kidd, don't you have a facility now?
I have a small 1,300 square foot. I can't board there, and I've outgrown that building. I've been there for 4 years. I've outgrown the building, and the new owner has come in, and he wants to remodel. So I'm really having to look for another place to move to because, 1, I want to expand. 2, because he's wanting me to kind of move somewhere so he can remodel the building to what he wants it to be.
Okay, so typically in what you do today with your business, they come in the morning, drop them off, then pick them up that evening? No overnight?
No overnight. No, not right now. No.
Okay.
They bring them in, we groom them, or they come in and they just hang out at the shop. I have one customer here, he brings his dog every day. She comes in at about 7:30, 8 o'clock. She stays till 5, or between 4 and 5:30. We water them, we play with them. She never barks. That's a good one about her, she never barks. But like I said, we do have some training on the barking, to help minimize the barking.
Do we have any further questions for the owner?
John, as it relates to enforcement, is that just case by case as a complaint comes in, or is there some other routine enforcement?
Yeah, typically that would be a case by case as we would get complaints. We would not generally in a case like this proactively go out and confirm that they're in compliance.
Now, I do have to say, if there is a problem I would like for the neighbors to be able to contact me. So I would be happy to give them my cell phone. And if there's a lot of ruckus going on at the salon, I would be more than happy to go up there anytime during the night and see what's going on. I want to work with the neighbors. I want to work with the companies next to me, because that's my business, that's their life. We got to work together.
Thank you. Any other public comment?
My name is Martha Mota. It's nice to see you guys in person. I've seen you on TV forever, and so I'm glad that I can see real people today. Okay, when I bought this property, 3912 Parkwood Drive, it was like a quaint community. In 20 years, things have changed. But I certainly didn't think that at 75 years old, I would have to be looking for another place to live. Because if this comes in, I'm going out. I'm not going to, this place is not big enough for a dog run. The dog run is a space about from here to there. It's concrete, and when it gets to be 108, the concrete gets hot. And not only that, what happens when the power goes out and there's 20 dogs in there? I want you to really consider this facility for a dog pound. Because basically, you know, they're really out of the city limits almost. So I really object to this, and I hope that, you know, you do take a serious matter, you know, because it is my property. I've been there almost 20 years. And this building is right across the street from Red Lobster. And under the tax office, I'm listed under residential. And it is homesteaded. But I do not want to be the dog patrol at 75 years old. Thank you.
What is your address? Do you back up to the property?
No, it's directly across the street from my front door.
And what is your address?
3912 Parkwood Drive.
John, could you go back to that and show us where that is on 3912?
39, I'm at the
Is it that
corner.
orange spot, the orange?
Yes. I'm on the
Where
corner.
the number 6 is? Is that number 6? Right there? Is that where you are, Martha?
Okay. I'm on the corner of Parkwood Drive and Driftwood.
Okay, right there.
Oh, okay, so you're across the street from this number 6. Okay, okay.
But it's right across the street from my front door.
Okay. Thank you.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Is there further public comment?
You'll pardon me if my voice is a little bit shaky. I'm not used to public speaking too well. My name is Bryce J. Parsons. I'm a local writer, work at Time Clock Plus. I had prepared a few words to say on this issue, but after listening to the discussion, I've got a few points that I want to mention. First and foremost, my wife, who could not be here tonight, and I are both in favor of this relocation. We think it would be a benefit. Our dog, or our child for now, her name is Millie, attends doggy daycare on a daily basis. It is an invaluable resource. I wanted to speak to the point, and I'm a little bit biased, so you'll excuse my my sentimentality when describing little Millie. She's just absolutely delightful. But she is she's a bundle of energy, very loving energy. She requires a lot of attention, and my wife is actually a critical care nurse at Community. She does work at night. She sleeps during the day when I'm working, and unfortunately there's nobody there to really care for Millie. And Millie, to her credit, tries to be quiet as much as a dog can during the day. She'll try and play quietly with varying results, according to my wife, who she cannot handle it during daytime hours, and so we use the doggy daycare service. We find it an invaluable resource. So definitely something that we can't live with. We can't live without at this juncture. I believe Liz said it a little while ago. Dogs together playing certainly can be a lot quieter, I would think, than children at a regular daycare. I've observed Millie playing with other dogs at the local dog park over there on College Hills in Millbrook, and she hardly ever gets riled up. They'll play and they'll chase each other around, do whatever, but very hardly, unless I tell her to speak, she won't bark at all. She's very quiet. She's again, biased, good little dog. I'd also like to speak to the point that, in my opinion, San Angelo, of course, is becoming very modern, very trendy. We've got a big software company in town that I happen to work for that's right in that general area, in fact. And in my opinion, such a facility that offers grooming and doggy daycare and eventually boarding, I think is a very modern need, is a very trendy sort of need, and both my wife and I feel that this would be very much a great asset to our community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further comment?
Brenda Jacob, and I live at 3807 Driftwood Court. This location is right behind our alley. I know for people who love dogs, they'd love for that to be there, but I can't imagine that being nothing but a barking place. And I know that we have those critters in our alleys, like the other ladies who opposed this said. They do get loud, and I get concerned about our property value over there. I don't think it's a good location for it. And I hope that they could find one that would be, because I know people love dogs. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Further comment? We will take a vote to approve.
I've got one question first. John,
Yes.
I'm reading this letter, and it keeps saying historically dogs' kennels are not allowed inside the city limits, but we have the exceptions of the vets in various places.
Yes, I mean, to say that they've historically not been allowed is whether or not there's some in the city, that's incorrect, because our ordinance specifically allows for dog kennels and dog boarding in specific zoning districts. So even if there weren't any in the city, the zoning ordinance does allow for them in certain areas. Again, in this particular area, it's a conditional use that has to be considered on a case-by-case, but I'm not aware of any past ordinance that has prohibited them in the city altogether.
Okay.
Any further questions from council? All right, we will take a vote. All of those in favor of allowing the doggy daycare kennel to exist, or I should say opposed to the action the Planning Commission rejected. So this is to approve the Planning Department's appeal to that decision. Does that make sense? Are we okay?
It's rejecting the denial of the Planning Commission and approving the conditional use with the four.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Aye.
Oh.
Me?
Aye.
You?
Nay.
Nay. 3 against, 4
Yes.
for.
So it fails.
It fails.
I didn't know what to say. Nay.
All right, we now have item C, consider first public hearing of an ordinance deleting Chapter 10, Article 10.03, Division 6, use of wireless communication devices from the City of San Angelo Code of Ordinances. Teresa?
January 2016, the City Council approved our texting ban that was put into our Code of Ordinances. At that time, I was instructed to watch what the legislature did, and if at any point they enacted their own ban, then we should consider whether or not we want to rescind our ordinance. The legislature actually preempted our ordinance in the statute they passed, so this ordinance change is really just cleanup of our Code of Ordinances to delete a provision beginning September 1st that will no longer be in effect.
Approve as presented.
A second? All in favor? Oh, no, public comment, sorry. Any public comment? No public comment, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
What the change will be as of September 1st. Currently, our ordinance prohibits texting anytime you're in the roadway. The state statute is a little more lenient than that. It will only prohibit texting while your car is moving, so you would be able to text while your vehicle stopped at a stoplight.
Thank you for that. It probably will help us all. D, first public hearing and consider an ordinance amending Appendix A fee schedule, Article A2.000, building and construction related fees, Section A2.002, building permit fees, amending Subpart C, review fee, amending Section A2.005, electrical permit fees, restating Subpart A, renaming fees as building apartment fees, amending Section A2.006, plumbing and fuel gas permit fees, restating Subpart A, renaming fees as building permit fees, amending Section A2.007, mechanical permit fees, restating Subpart A, renaming fees as building permit fees, and amending Section A2.014, registration, restating Subpart 1, contractor annual fee. And Al, I believe you're sitting there ready to go.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mayor, council members. Al Torres, building official, City of San Angelo. As you read a mouthful, but really this is essentially 3 changes to the fee ordinance. One is a standalone item, and the other 2 are related to a state bill that just recently passed. The first item is basically right now, as you know, we charge a permit fee when somebody pulls a permit. On commercial projects, a lot of times we'll do a plan review, and then for whatever reason, the contractor will change their mind or the project won't happen, and we're out all that work and aren't collecting anything because we don't collect anything until the permit is due. We would like to do as a lot of other cities do and charge a percentage of that permit fee up front so that if the project gets canceled, we've at least got some coverage for our time. Most of the other cities do 20%, 25%, 50%. We're proposing 10% because we also don't want to create an undue burden, especially on larger projects. So basically 10% of the permit fee would be due at the time of application. We are not raising the fee. When their permit is ready and they come by to pick up their permit, that 10% will be deducted from the fee amount when it's due. So all we're doing is asking for some of that up front.
To move forward, so.
Then we still will be charging that 10%, and we'll keep that because that'll cover the cost of the plan review because we spend a lot of hours reviewing plans before we issue a permit. So basically that'll help offset, and it still won't cover all of those costs, but it'll help at least offset some of those costs somewhat. So the cost of service that we're putting into it, we're keeping some of that and getting some of that back. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The other 2 items, Texas legislature just recently passed a bill that it really addresses electricians, and the intent of the bill, as far as we've all been researching this, and TML their attorneys have also been studying this, and Teresa's looked at this as well. And the intent of the bill is for registration fees not to be charged to electricians. Plumbers did this a couple of years ago, and now the electricians are doing it. However, the way the bill is worded, some people were interpreting it to mean that we couldn't charge any permits at all. But the way everybody's looked at it, we determined that if we call it a building permit, we don't have to change that, and legally they can't make us not charge for a building permit. So the one step we're doing is we're changing the language just to rename the permits from straight out electrical fee to a building permit fee, electrical fee. And then the other part is to eliminate the registration fee for electricians, which is what the intent of the bill is.
Describe that a little bit better for me. So an electrician has to come register with the city of San Angelo in order to perform any electrical work on on any project.
That is
that
correct.
What that means?
That is correct. Any contractor in town has to come register with us to do work in San Angelo. We currently charge $30 annually for every contractor to register with us to do work here. The law says that an electrician, he is already registering with the state through his license with the state. So they're saying that local municipalities can no longer charge him a registration fee. We can still make him register. We just can't charge him that registration fee.
Because he pays a state fee.
Because he pays a state fee. And plumbers did the same thing a few years ago, so that's already in place. And we anticipate the mechanical contractors will probably follow suit pretty soon. So that's why we're changing their names in all three trades rather than just one. So as far as what that's going to mean for us is, like I said, we're not raising any fees, but we are losing revenue from those registrations. We estimating about $4,000 a year in registration fees from electricians that we're going to be losing because of this. So. Is that
Do we
clear
have
enough,
questions for Al?
So
Thank you.
basically, we're complying with state law.
Correct. Two of those are just basically changing language so we can comply with state law.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve as presented.
A second?
Second.
Do I have public comment? We'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Al. The last item, E, on the regular agenda is being pulled, so we will not be discussing that this evening. We are going to go into closed session at this point. Do I need to know what time it is? It's 6:37, so we will go into closed session.
And you only need to read the first provision, A.
Executive session under the provision of Government Code Title V, Open Government, Ethics, Subtitle A, Open Government, Chapter 551, Open Meetings, Subchapter D, exceptions to requirement that meetings be open under the following sections.
And item A?
Yeah, A is the only one we'll be talking about today.
Okay, so section 551.072, deliberations about real property regarding Lot 9A, Block 2, Section 9A, Red Arroyo Hills Edition.
That's correct.
15 minutes, you think, or how long do you think?
Cindy, how long do you think? 15 minutes is enough? Yes, 15 minutes.
About 15
More
minutes
than
will
enough,
do.
yeah.
15 minutes, we will come back. We will call this meeting back to order at 6:59 p.m. There was no action taken during closed session, so we will do follow-up and administrative issues, which is what we just did. There was nothing discussed in executive session. So are there any announcements in consideration of future agenda items?
I'd like to make a comment before we get too far, Brenda. Just take a couple minutes. Had the opportunity to have some conversation with some of the city community leaders over the last 2 weeks since we made a decision on some tiers money. And I've been reminded that in a community of our size, partnerships are key to the success of many projects. And I was reminded that the city has been involved in some of those projects, using tax dollars for some of those projects. But in the opposite side, there have been some foundation monies that have been given to the city for city projects. And so I just want the citizens to know that having a better understanding of those partnerships may allow me to make some decisions on any future things we may have.
I'm not sure what that means, but
Well, it simply means that if the city has an opportunity to partner with somebody for any specific project, any project that takes city money, I may want to consider it, because I was pretty I drew a line in the sand last time and said that I didn't believe that, that tax dollars ought to be used for nonprofit projects. And I just need me reminded that partnerships, regardless of who those partnerships are with, are key to the success of many projects that we have in the community, whether it's city and a foundation or foundation and nonprofits or whatever it is. So I take another look at my statement.
All right. At this moment, do I have a motion for adjournment? Oh, sure.
I had a citizen ask for another citizen, if the mulch piles in the parking lots were for free reign, and confirmed it with Daniel. Yes, the mulch piles from all the shredded limbs from our storms, if anybody would like it, it's free for the taking. But it's by the end of the week that we are getting rid of it.
Thanks.
Any further announcements? Meeting adjourned.
Move to adjourn.
Second. Done.